So, the internet had some things to say about our last episode. Oh, sorry. Quick announcement. We now have a subreddit, r/It's2Brothers podcast on reddit.com. So if you want to go and comment and let us know how wrong we are about everything in this episode, feel free to go there. We would love to hear from you. All right, back to the episode.
Oh, yeah, I avoided that thread like the plague, I have to be honest. I was like, people are going to just rip me apart.
Well, they ripped us both apart. I mean, I tried to do as much justice to your argument as humanly possible, but oh boy, it's always interesting when you throw something up on Reddit and then realize, oh no, we're not smart men, we're stupid men.
Yes, well, yeah. I mean, I read like the first post in that thread about just like, well, I mean, those aren't even really genres, and it was like, okay, we weren't even close.
I think that there were a variety of. So it's always interesting, right? When you put an argument up on the internet, it is amazing. No matter how clearly you think you're explaining yourself, how much people could completely miss the point.
Yeah. To be fair, I did a pretty bad job of explaining myself personally.
Yeah, and I definitely...
So I wouldn't even go so far as to defend my own arguments, honestly.
It's like, I listen back to my arguments, and I don't agree with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, like, there was a lot of comments. I feel like about half the comments that we got were some form of, yeah, but that excludes things like JRPGs. And it's like, I literally said. Oh, my God. I literally said that we're excluding those on purpose. You know, it's like, and also the whole point is what are we trying to exclude versus what are we trying to include? But that's neither here nor there. The thing that I want to ask you about, because I feel like this was a fun little central point to your argument, and then somebody, because I was not aware of this, and then somebody basically completely shot it down as far as I was concerned. So Baldur's Gate, does it have multiple endings?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Care to comment?
It has multiple endings. It just doesn't have like it doesn't really have multiple endings, because the ending is always you kill
the guy.
The guy. Yeah, fuck, I can't remember his name.
It's okay, because I've never played the game, so it would mean nothing to me.
So you always kill that guy, but just like how you get to the point of doing that is very like, sure, it doesn't have multiple endings, but it has. Every other choice is a choice in that game. And so it's like, I'm fine with it not having a technical multiple ending. Because it's like, you know, you can take over, or we can't really take over, but you can like, you know, be the evil guy who's like, you know, getting in on the ground floor of like fucking over people, you know. Or you can be the good guy who's like, you know, finally defeating the evil villain. And it's like, you know, you're defeating the evil villain in both of those scenarios, obviously. Mm-hmm. But in one, you're defeating him to, like, become him. And in another, you're defeating him because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I also, actually, on the note of, like, just multiple endings and stuff, this is kind of an aside, but apparently just, like, there was a post about BioWare talking about how, like, the Mass Effect Renegade versus Paragon.
Uh-huh.
And apparently only, like, it was something crazy, like only 10% of people or something played Renegade.
Oh, I saw that. That was interesting.
That was crazy, because I always play the evil evil side.
So you're the 10%. Okay.
Yeah.
It's you.
It was weird. In fact, I went back recently and played KOTOR 1 and 2 again. Because I'd always, you know, when I was a kid, I'd always play the evil side. And, you know, it was always, you know, super fun. And as an adult, I always tried to play the light side, because it was I never saw that side of the game.
Yeah.
But I could never finish those games playing light side. And so when I read back recently, I finally was like, I'm going to do another dark side playthrough. It's been like a decade, and oh my god, it's so much more fun. I don't understand why people don't like playing the evil character. It's like, it's 1,000 times better.
I always like playing the good character, but I mean, I guess I'm kind of in the majority, apparently.
Yeah, apparently you're in the vast majority. That was what's so crazy to me.
Yeah, I always assumed it was going to be the exact opposite.
Yeah, right? I always thought, it's crazy. And like that thread, people were like, yeah, I never played Renegade. Renegade was just asshole all the time. It was like, well, yeah, it was just asshole all the time. That's what made it so fun.
Yeah, I forced myself to do, when I played, what was that, Dragon Age? Mm-hmm. I, like, forced myself to do an evil playthrough, which I'm glad I did, because I feel like that probably would have been way more fun than the good playthrough for that particular game, because then because Morrigan's storyline was really interesting, and you would never get to see any of that if you do a good playthrough. So I was like, okay, I'm down with this.
Yeah, well, to be fair, in that game, there exists just like in-game cheat items for getting your companions to like you regardless.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But I did an actual genuinely evil playthrough.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, yeah.
So the other thing that was brought up in that thread, and this one kind of floored me, because, I didn't really think about this, but it's a good argument. So, because we were talking about the whole, concept of the difference between like playing an established character versus playing a character you create yourself.
Yeah.
And somebody said, okay, you're fine. But then, so let's say you're sitting down to play, pen and paper D&D, right? And you're like, I can't be bothered to deal with all of the creating of the character thing. Can you just create a character for me and I'll play that character? So you do that. Are you all of a sudden not playing a pen and paper RPG anymore?
I mean, I would argue that you get out of Dungeons and Dragons what you put into it. Mm-hmm. And I play with a few people who don't put anything in and don't get anything out.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, actually, you're not playing a pen and paper RPG at that point. You're just sitting there and occasionally rolling dice when someone tells you. It's just like, sorry guys, I'm sorry for gatekeeping Dungeons and Dragons. I'm hitting myself right now because I'm such a bad boy. But fuck you, if you're not role playing in Dungeons and Dragons, you're just rolling dice occasionally. And, that's fun. Like, have fun. Don't let me yuck your yum. Like, I'm not saying don't play Dungeons and Dragons. Like, have fun. Do whatever you want. But fuck you. You're not role-playing at that point. Yeah.
Even if you role-play the character effectively, like, you are like, hey, I'm going to role-play this character, as written. It's like, I'm a paladin. I'm going to do paladin stuff. I'm going to make paladin choices. I'm going to do the voices in paladin voice.
Okay. No, at that point, you are role-playing. But and the key here is that even if you had like this base of a character you're operating off of, what I would say is that you don't. It's not like a video game where it's like programmed in, right? Mm-hmm. Like, sure, you might be, doing things that you think your character would do based on the backstory you were given, but it's not, a situation where it's like, okay, I have option A, B, C, and D, and then I'm gonna choose one based on what I think my character would do. I'm going to do something that I think is consistent with the character I have. And at that point, yeah, it gets a little gray.
Yeah, I think we're getting real into shit. Like, I'm less convinced now of the argument than I initially was after hearing that.
Well, I'm just shocked that I convinced you at all. So that's great.
Maybe I don't think hard enough about things sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, because after we had that whole discussion, I went back and just thought about it, and I was like, man, there are so many holes in my argument. Yeah. It's crazy.
And believe me, Reddit found basically 100% of them.
I'm sure they found 110% of the holes.
Yeah, I mean, that thread, I think, got up over 100 comments, and
oh shit.
Oh
God,
man.
On True Gaming too.
It was a
that's bad.
It was an exhaustive flagellation of your argument.
Oh, okay. I really should go and read that, I guess.
Yeah.
Now that it's done.
It was super interesting. It was a good discussion. I'm glad that we did it, and some of the people actually came and listened to the podcast. So if any of you are still listening now,
thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you want to,
thanks for not just like getting angry and never listening to us again because of my stupid arguments.
Yeah. If you want to continue berating us for all of our arguments, please continue listening and commenting on Reddit on things. Oh man. All right. Should we talk about, do we have anything to say about the new Half-Life Alyx trailer that came out? I don't know if you watched that at all.
I actually did not.
Oh, okay. We could talk about that on another episode, unless you want to like take a pause and watch it right now.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right.
Oh, okay. That was it. Yeah. I mean, that looks great.
Right?
I mean, it looks like a video game in a way that most VR games do not.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by the graphical fidelity of it. Like, I think I see somewhat what they're doing in that, like, a lot of the textures, they look a lot simpler, but they probably look really, really, really nice in VR because they look really, I want to say that they look a little bit like smoothed over, which maybe makes it a little bit easier for VR to like deal with, them from a graphical perspective. I don't know if I know nothing about programming. It's just like, that's at first blush what it seems to me is going on. that they're kind of like using a slightly simpler but very like good looking textures to kind of, give you like the frame rate a little bit of a boost. I don't know if you agree with that at all.
I mean, I see it there. It does look a little bit, I almost want to say like cartoony, not actually cartoony.
Yeah.
But like there's like an unrealism
to
the way, like especially all the tiling like looks very like vivid almost.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to look incredible.
I mean, it looks great. Yeah. I mean, it looks great.
The Zen stuff especially, like that, like really organic stuff. I'm really impressed by the way that looks. I mean, like, I think a lot of that is like, it looks like there's some like, lighting kind of tricks in there to make
I'm looking now. The textures definitely aren't like super high def textures.
Yeah.
Just looking at it.
Which I think is okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, VR, I'm loving all the interactivity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's, it's funny. Like, we've talked about VR on almost every single episode. To the point where like it's like this is the VR podcast with also some movies in the background.
Exactly, yeah.
But the more that I feel like we've kind of danced around this issue, but it's kind of funny to me how the big thing to come out of VR is not actually the VR portion itself. It's the 1-to-1 scale motion controls. Like we mocked motion controls when they came out. Like it's like, oh, like the Wii and all this stuff, because obviously it wasn't 1-to-1, and like even like to the same extent like things like the PlayStation Move. But like having actual 1-to-1 motion controls, I mean, seeing them from a first person perspective really helps. But that ability to actually track your hand movements and pick up things and manipulate them in real time, like that's almost the bigger deal in VR than the actual like VR portion. It helps to be able to have depth perception, obviously. Makes interacting with objects way easier than it would be on a flat screen. But like, I think VR without those motion controls would just be a gimmick.
I mean, I don't even know what would it be without the motion controls, right? Like, I can't even imagine VR without those.
Well, I mean, you could play VR games with a mouse and keyboard. Like I've sat down and played like Minecraft on a mouse and keyboard because I'm like just a little bit more in VR. And it's like, it's still really cool because you could still, look around and, see the world.
It's still Minecraft.
Yeah, I mean, it's still Minecraft. But like it's, playing it with a mouse and keyboard is still really cool and I really enjoy it. But like this level of interactivity with your environment, this is the real game changer, I think, with the technology that VR is bringing.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think the whole, I think every game could stand to use these kind of controls.
Somebody brought up something.
I mean, within reason.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe not every game necessarily, but
it's like I don't want to play Total War with motion controls.
Although, if you played motion, like being able to like drag and drop like the boxes with your hands, or like pick up and like move individual units where you want them to, like stuff like that, might be interesting. Like playing an RTS, like from like a god standing over like a like a big battlefield type of scenario.
Yeah, like a god game would be great with these controls, like a black and white.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Somebody, I was reading a thread on Reddit a little while back related to VR, and somebody was saying, I think it was actually in relation to this trailer, that they were saying that this is going to kind of be like, this is almost the dwarf fortress of FPS, like with having, motion controls and physical interactivity. Because they were saying like the big thing with Dwarf Fortress, right, is like it's that like natural type of thing. I mean, like obviously Dwarf Fortress is not the most natural game to play, but it's like the emergent gameplay that exists from having literally just interacting systems and being able to say like, okay, water, this is how water works, or this is how, like disease works in the real world, and because it's programmed into the game, it's like it reacts in a way that's natural. And so instead of having to create tons of contextual things, you basically just have a thing where it's like, I think this will interact this way in the real world, so let's see if it interacts that way in the virtual world. And FPS really hasn't had that kind of concept until probably, I mean, with Boneworks and now with this, of the whole kind of concept of, okay, I think it would work if I pick up this barrel and, chuck it at this guy and then, shoot it while it's in the air. It's like, does that work in VR? It's like, can I knock over this cabinet and see something behind it? Or, can I pick up this can and dump it out? And I think these, you see all these things, all these emergent gameplay items that, it's kind of, this is kind of like the FPS Dwarf Fortress moment, where now we can have all of this really emergent gameplay just by having systems that interact the way that real life works.
See, I kind of think the original Half-Life 2 was that.
He was definitely striving towards that,
Yeah.
But this is, I guess, maybe the logical conclusion of that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Breath of the Wild also is another game that's like... I mean, I feel like emergent gameplay has become more popular as physics... the physics engines have become more robust for doing stuff like this.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, I mean, obviously action-adventure / RPG games, have trended towards this. Things like Deus Ex and all that.
Oh, God, Deus Ex is...
And obviously Deus Ex is, is a first-person shooter, so I'm kind of,
good.
being...
It's the best fucking FPS ever.
It's so good. I love that game, man.
It's so good.
Oh, God.
I can't get over how good that game is. And I didn't play it when I was a kid, so I have no rose-tinted goggles for that game.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I mean, you remember, I bought that game on a fluke. It was going to be between that and like some other rando game. And I was like, well, this looks good.
Yeah.
Let me just buy this, back in the like, Babbage's days. Or maybe it was GameStop at that point.
I think.
Maybe it was GameStop. I thought it might have been Babbage's.
Was really early.
Babbage's was really early. That was when I was like buying like computer games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Before Steam, and I could just, like binge buy computer games. Oh man, but yeah, no, Deus Ex is fantastic. I mean, we could go on forever, and we won't. We will actually talk about a movie for once.
Yes.
So, should we talk about a movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we talk about the one that we just watched, Lawrence of Arabia? Why don't we talk about that one?
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm really glad it was actually Lawrence of Arabia, because I was getting worried. I was like, did I watch the right movie?
All right. So, do you have any opening thoughts?
I mean, everything is beautiful and amazing in that movie, and it's so great.
So how long ago...
That's my opening thoughts.
So, okay, how long ago did you first watch Lawrence of Arabia? Because this was my first time watching
it. Not that long ago. Maybe like 2 years.
Oh, okay. Because this was a movie that I've had kind of on my movie list for some time. But, I mean, being that it's, near as makes no difference, a 4-hour movie, I was like...
Yeah, it's 4 hours.
Yeah, it may as well be. So I was like, this is, like, where am I going to fit this into my schedule? Which I say as if that every single night I don't watch like 5 hours of a television show. So, like that. Freaking Netflix, man. Just like destroying all my concepts of time. But so finally sat down and watched it. I mean, essentially, 1 hour at a time, with little breaks in between. Mm-hmm. Which I cannot.
I mean, it has an intermission.
It does have an intermission. I can't last that long, kind of like
for me the first part of that movie is like nothing. It flows through me. I don't even notice that I'm watching. Yesterday I watched it and I think the intermission's at like
2 hours,
an hour 45, 2 hours.
I think it's around 2 hours. Yeah,
and that first 2 hours for me is nothing. I could do that a billion times and not even notice.
Yeah, that's not the big problem for me. That's need to get up, go to the bathroom, need to go up, get a beverage, I'm like, no, I can't sit through this entire movie without some manner of beverage or snack, and then also some manner of going to the bathroom every hour. So that's how that works.
You drink too much beer, Jason.
Look, man,
you gotta switch to hard liquor for these kind of movies.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how well, I do know how people do it. They just, got up, went to the bathroom in the middle of movies, but freaking, I don't 4-hour movie, man. Like, what are you doing to people?
Yeah.
You need breaks. So, thank God for sitting on my couch. But I will say that you are absolutely correct. I've watched more than one 4-hour movie in my day, or close to 4 hour. I mean, like Seven Samurai is getting up there in time wise.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow, I can't say that. Apocalypse Now Redux, I believe, clocks in pretty close to 4 hours.
Oh God, really? Ooh, I never. Oh, ooh.
It's. I mean, I think it's maybe
now. That's heavy.
Maybe it's 3.5. Maybe it's long. It's a long movie, but so I'm no stranger to the 3-4 hour movie runtime. But oh man, this movie just flew by. You barely even notice you're watching it because it's just like it. I won't say it wastes no time, but I will say that I don't feel like I feel like you could cut the movie down, but I couldn't tell you where I would actually cut the movie down.
Yeah, no, I definitely couldn't either.
Yeah.
It's I mean, my thoughts on it are just like, there's a lot of movies nowadays that go out of their way to not show you what's happening. Mm-hmm. Something I thought of was like the Bourne movies, right? Like, those movies go out of their way to make you not understand what's happening with the camera.
Yeah.
For like large portions of scenes. Mm-hmm. And this movie never does that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's this is a masterpiece of cinematography and like these big, wide sweeping shots where you can I mean like
so beautiful.
I shudder to think the kind of like technicalness that went into shooting a movie. I mean, with all of the extras, because I mean, there's no CGI to deal with all of this. It's like you got to just corral 150 people.
Yeah, and their camels.
And their horses. I mean, like that scene where the horses are pouring out of the train.
Oh my god.
I mean, they just did that scene, you know, and it's like
you can see how scared those horses are.
And I could imagine how, I mean, I've seen horses up close. They're scary. They're huge animals. Shit, man.
You have like 200 of them leaping off of like a 10-foot jump.
Oh god. So just from a technical standpoint, this movie is just a complete and utter masterpiece,
Yes.
But I'll tell you one.
It is.
Oh yeah.
It literally is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of movies that get described as epic, but I don't think that very many actually earn that moniker in the way that Lawrence of Arabia earns that moniker. I mean, this is truly an epic.
Yeah. I mean, when I was watching it, I kept waiting for the train derailment scene. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that doesn't happen until part 2.
Yeah.
I was sitting there like, man, when is this train derailment scene going to happen? Like, I've been watching this movie for a while. Like, what the hell's going on? It's just like, it's not even in part 1 at all. And that totally threw me for a loop. I was like, whoa, wow. There's so much movie before that.
Now, going into the movie, did you know who Alec Guinness played?
Oh, see that's interesting. The first time I watched it, it took me a few scenes with him.
Me too.
To realize he was in brownface.
Yeah, I was shocked at how good of a job he did with that. And if we're going to talk like very, very briefly about like the kind of, like the culture, I mean, because when was Lawrence of Arabia made? It was like what, like early 60s?
60s.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously.
I mean, it's racist. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, it is. But it is.
By our standards of modern day.
Which is, it's funny though, because it's like, I mean, this shit still goes on, I mean, because like you could talk about like, what was that movie that came out very recently with Scarlett Johansson?
Thunder? Oh, what?
Ghost in the Shell. And it's like,
yeah.
Why aren't we, casting a Japanese actress for this? Like Japanese actresses exist, you could easily do this, but whatever. Anyway. Yeah. So, but I guess what I will say about that is, first of all, had a hard time noticing that it was him. And also, I feel like at least for the time, that was as not egregious as it possibly could be. Like comparing that to something like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is like on the very other end of the spectrum of like, oh fuck, I can barely watch this movie. Like looking at that happening.
It's so bad.
Like oh Jesus, that was so bad. Because I was reading some things about the movie, and apparently he looks very, very, very much like the actual Prince Faisal, to the point where there were people that because obviously they were filming in the region, and there were people that knew him, or at least were familiar with what he looked like, and they thought that Alec Guinness was actually Prince Faisal.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's apocryphal or not, but it's reported in a bunch of different things. So it's like, I find it very interesting. And apparently him and Omar Sharif, who is the Egyptian actor that played, what's the guy's name?
Ali?
Yeah, whatever Sharif Ali. Yeah.
Yeah, Sharif Ali.
Yeah. Alec Guinness and him, kind of like, he kind of helped Alec Guinness do a Middle Eastern accent,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because I will say, on my second watch through, Alex Guinness's accent did bother me.
Okay.
A little bit. Because it was so very much, because the rest of the Arab actors are I mean, at least I think they are all Arabic.
They're not actually. So the guy, the guy that Peter O'Toole rescues from the desert.
Yeah.
He's actually, I believe he's Mexican.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's.
Oh yeah, Michael Ray.
Yeah. Because I was looking all this up. I was like, I wonder how many Arabic actors they actually use. And, like, some of them they did. But, although I will say this. So, again, about, like, the whole Alec Guinness thing. Okay, first of all, for the time, much, much more tastefully done.
A very respectful
yes.
Act.
Yes.
Whatever. Portrayal of the role.
And I also will say, I imagine that, kind of in a sort of an ends justify the means type of scenario, because a lot of the times one of the major complaints too is like, well, you're taking away chances for people of of that ethnicity to actually do these roles. But this movie did launch Omar Sharif's career, and I think if a big star like Alec Guinness wasn't attached to it, I don't know if it would have had the same effect. So while I'm not necessarily condoning it, I do say that, like, man, this was a good thing for Omar Sharif, and hopefully this opened. I don't know enough about this, but I do hope that this opened the door for more Arabic actors to actually be able to be in movies.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously controversies over his portrayal, but I mean, I know, I think Egypt still plays this as like a really good example of like Arab nationalism. Is it Egypt?
No, I think it is Egypt, because Egypt was the only country. I did some research about this movie because I was interested in kind of like the history of how this was reacted to.
It's steeped in history.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a historical fiction, it's but
yeah,
like I think Egypt was the only country that was in the Arabic world that was actually showing this, because I think that the other the other Arab countries were kind of seeing this movie as kind of putting down like the Arabic population, whereas Egypt kind of saw it as the exact opposite, and I also saw it as the exact opposite. And I think it's kind of funny seeing this from a modern perspective, because like with things that are going on in the U.S. and stuff like that, like there's certain portions of the population that don't have strong feelings towards the Arabic world, which, seeing this movie, I'm like, oh, wow, this is like a really like nice portrayal of the Arabic world versus like almost how you see it sometimes today. It's like, it's like almost like we've gotten like less progressive in senses.
I mean, there's definitely a bit of white savior going on in this movie.
Yes, and I'm sure that Lawrence, like T.E. Lawrence's actual contributions are probably way overstated in this movie.
They are. Yes, they are.
But at least the Arabs are the good guys in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting historical look. I mean, semi-historical look at like the origins of like the modern like Saudi Arabia and Syria and like the Arab nation states that exist now. Like,
now, have you seen Charlie Wilson's War?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
love that movie.
I could not help but think about that movie while I was watching this. I mean, obviously Charlie Wilson's War less like epic in scope and all of that.
Well, it's actually interesting because the original script for this movie was more similar to Charlie Wilson's War. It was more political, less like epic, less focus on T.E. Lawrence.
Really? That's interesting.
So the original version of the film is actually very similar to Charlie Wilson's War. So it's interesting you bring that up.
That's super fascinating, because like all I could think about like while I was watching this movie, I was thinking about Charlie Wilson's War. I was like, God, man, not to get too political, but Jesus Christ, we've been fucking around in the Arab world way too goddamn much.
It's like, man, this is the start of all the bullshit.
It's like
just like the fucking Sykes-Picot agreement, like all that bullshit.
Fuck, like, and it's like just two dudes. It was like some diplomatic envoy and some other diplomatic envoy were like, hey, what if we carve up Saudi Arabia? And they were like, yeah, that sounds like a reasonable thing to do. And then they just did it.
Let's do it. They're not going to stop us.
Yeah, who's going to stop us?
We have artillery.
Oh my God. So yes, I was shocked at like how long this is, because like World War I, like, I mean, I learned about Sykes-Picot in school, but I guess at the time I didn't really realize what I was really learning about.
No, of course not.
But now, like seeing this as an adult and kind of understanding these things, I'm like, oh my God. Jeez.
Yeah,
this has been
I
going
know,
on a
right?
long time. So, going to a cinematography perspective, I will say one of the things that struck me very early on in the movie was the match. So, right before we actually get into the desert, there's the very early scenes of T.E. Lawrence walking through the halls with the guy from the Arab Bureau. And, they're talking about, like him going into the desert. It's like, oh, I think it'll be fun, And then, he pulls out the match and he just holds it there for a bit, looking at it, and then blows it out and then smash cut immediately to that sunset.
Oh, yeah, the sunset, yes.
That cut, because if you notice throughout the movie, it's a lot of, very traditional, like, dissolves, from one scene to another. You know what I'm talking about?
Honestly, I honestly didn't notice any transitions.
Okay.
If I'm completely honest. Yeah.
It's very much the old school kind of filmmaking of you dissolve, from one scene to another, but that cut was extremely abrupt. It's the match blows out and you're instantly in the desert seeing the sunset.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have a note about that sunset scene.
Yeah.
That is like visually stunning.
Yeah. Because that cut struck me as extremely modern. That is not something I'm sure that, and actually I did a little bit of research on it because I wanted to see if this was the first movie. I think this might have been the first mainstream movie that did a very abrupt cut like that, because apparently they took that a little bit from like the French cinema. So there was
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, right?
I mean, French New Wave is modern cinema.
Yes, and so the French New Wave, that was one of the big things, was that kind of, very, very snappy cut. And to see that in a major Hollywood film, I believe for the first time, but I'm not a film history person. All I know is I can't think of a movie earlier than this movie that does such an abrupt cut like that. And from what I understand, apparently that almost didn't happen because they had cut. It wasn't actually. I shouldn't say that it almost didn't happen, but it happened completely by accident. Is they were in the editing room, and obviously, the movie was cut together, and they hadn't, put in the transitions yet. And they saw that scene. They were watching it, and they were like, "Oh, that's perfect." They actually took, I think, maybe 3 or 4 frames out of it to make the cut even more abrupt.
Oh,
and that was the final scene, which is just like, that's super fucking cool to me, man, because it's like I saw that, I was like, wow, that is a really sharp transition for a movie from the 60s. Like, that's incredible. So yeah, I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I mean that image is so visually stunning. I'm sure that part of the reason that it's so visually stunning is that smash cut.
Yes,
for sure.
So the sunset scene, you wanted to talk about that.
I mean, it's like I don't even really like have anything like super deep to say. It's just it's such a beautiful image.
Yes.
That they get, and it's just like the way it's it's coming off the desert sand, and it's just, oh my god. And they do another sunset shot later in the movie that's very similar, but it's when they're crossing the whatever the heck, the Nefu Desert.
Yeah.
And it's the sun's anvil. And so it's a totally different like feeling of seeing, like, the first time you see the sun, it's like, it's this beautiful sunset, and then the sun is the enemy.
Oh, okay.
And it's, it's going to be the thing that kills them, and it's just like, there's so many of those like callbacks using like just the visual imagery.
Yeah.
That I just love.
Yeah, I mean, like, I probably should have paid more attention to the sunset scenes because there was a number of them, and I imagine they all had a thematically different kind of feel to them.
There's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
There's the one when they're crossing the Nefu Desert. Mm-hmm. Is there a third one?
Didn't they reopen, like, when he goes back to the desert? Did they I feel like there was at least a third and possibly a fourth sunset, but I'm not sure.
Because the third shot in that scene is him coming out of the Nefu Desert with the guy he shoots later.
Yeah.
Because that's another like really long shot. I mean, they also love those long shots.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, we've already said it, but just, I mean, like, this is such a cinematography masterpiece. I mean, like, it's so beautifully shot, the whole thing. Like, it's just really, really good.
Yeah. Oh my God, the scenes. Oh, when he's walking, like the echoes in like the canyon.
Oh yeah.
Like when it's like the British guy calls to him and it cuts to like that big like wide angle shot of like the huge cannon, and you have to search for the British guy.
Yeah.
Like really hard to see this tiny little figure against these massive cliff faces, and it's just like the scale is unbelievable.
Yeah. Because I mean, like it's like I think about something like Gone with the Wind, right? Which another movie. I mean, I can't remember when it was. Gone with the Wind was I think earlier than this.
Earlier,
yeah.
Definitely.
Gone with the Wind. Probably, Gone with the Wind was
that's like 1940s or something, right? I mean,
yeah,
maybe 50s.
1940, yeah. So definitely earlier than that. But like even still, like Gone with the Wind, like
oh my god, 1939.
Yeah, another kind of very like long epic movie that garners a lot of praise. But like even Gone with the Wind in a lot of ways is very much shot like a still shot like a stage play,
like a play. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Whereas like this is really like this is showing the power of filmmaking. Is like these angles and these shots that like this visual representation that you could just never see with something like with something like a play. And in the same thing too with that, like when you think about like those transitions, like those I was noticing all of those dissolved transitions and how like they're very traditional, and that's very like curtain closing, curtain opening. So seeing that very abrupt thing again, it's like this is showing what cinema can actually do, because you can't do that in a stage play. You can't abruptly transition from one scene to another. That's just not an option.
I like to see that.
That would be interesting, where they just like drop the scene onto you as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Crash. all the actors get like pulled out of trapdoors and like are like immediately replaced by new ones.
They have like a rope tied to their ankle and it just like yanks them back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, would be a little tricky. So like, I mean, yeah, I was like some of those, especially some of those like really tall shots, like where they're showing, like the camps, like, like the, like where like,
like the big black tents spread off
like,
across the landscape.
I mean, I guess like I'm trying to think about like, I don't know like the mechanics of how they shoot those. I mean, I guess maybe they had to just like go up on one of like the rock outcroppings and film from there, or I don't know if they were filming from like some type of like airplane or something. I don't know exactly how they do that kind of stuff. I'm not that familiar with filming techniques as much as I'd like to be. So I probably sound like an idiot trying to talk about this, but
I mean, I'm almost positive none of those were aerial shots.
Yeah. I mean, because we take those things for granted. I mean, like, it's like you look at that shot, you're like, oh, it's a drone shot. Which obviously it isn't. But it's like, nowadays it's like, anybody with like $50 and a camera could, do a drone shot like that and make it look amazing. But back in the day, it's like they had to set that stuff up, man. That was tricky. That took a lot of work. And I mean, all the extras and all the setup time, and it's like you did, cost of filmmaking back in the day was astronomical.
I mean, they derailed a train for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, right there.
Yeah. I imagine that was a high pressure shot of like, all right, guys, we really can't fuck this up because otherwise we don't have budget for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. We can't get two trains.
We can't get two trains. They're only going to give us one train, so we really got to get this one right. Yeah, because I mean, like, none of this was done with miniatures, was it? That I know of.
No, I mean, that would make sense to do that, but I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know for a fact. I'd be interested to look that up later.
I mean, if that train is miniature work, then that is very impressive miniature work.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you know what? Now I want to look. The train derailment, Lawrence of Arabia.
If you find out that it was done with miniatures, don't tell me. I don't want to ruin the magic.
I'm having trouble finding how it was actually done. That's okay.
Okay.
Because they have a train that's like wrecked on the side. It's probably they probably don't tell me how it was done because it was literally just done with a train.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? They just derailed the train.
Yeah, it's like they just obviously. How else would you do it? Because, yeah, I mean, I think about something like Star Wars, where it's like, I mean, obviously you can't just, build ships in space. You had to do so much of it with miniatures. But it's like, yeah, this is just the old school of like, fuck it, we'll do it live,
Well, and what's really crazy is, like, you think about something like the modern Fury Road, right?
Yeah.
Which is praised for its practical effects.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at, like, the original, like, without any CGI or, like, filters or anything, like, it looks a little boring, actually.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit, like, less impressive. And it's just, like, so even now, like, stuff that is praised for being practical is still pretty CGI. And this is no CGI.
Yes.
This is only practical.
Predates the invention of CGI.
And it's better. It's better.
Yeah, it is an amazing, like, just from a visual perspective. Yes. So now, what did you think about the score of this movie?
I mean, it's good. It's very epic. And amazing. And it's very one note.
Yes. Okay. I'm so glad you said that. Oh, God.
It is the same music the whole time. And it does... You do notice that at a certain point.
Oh, God. Okay, so this score won, like, an Academy Award, and it's, like, beloved and all that stuff. And I was like, am I the only one that thinks that it's, like, only okay to, like, kind of weird and somewhat grating at times? Because there was a couple scenes, like, especially the scene where, like, the kids, like, are, like, watching him, like, sit and look off into the desert, where, like, the music just does this really weird fucking thing where it just goes, like, all over the place for a bit before finally resolving into, like, the main Lawrence of Arabia theme. And I was like, what emotion, score, are you trying to make me feel right now? Because if it's confusion, then, and kind of, like, mild annoyance, then, I mean, you've nailed it. But, like, what is going on here? This movie is overscored. That's what I'm gonna say. They just, it's an old movie. So, like, I get it. That's a thing that they do. They just fucking score every single part of the movie, and they just, like, beat you in the face with, like, there's going to be music in every scene, so deal with it.
There's no way around that.
But, like, it could be better.
Yeah, there definitely are many moments in the film where it was just like, you can just shut up.
Yeah.
Like, let the filmmaking speak for itself. I don't need the score. Yeah. That's a very modern attitude, I feel.
Yeah. But, like, I guess, like, even without... Because, like, I think about this, right? Like, I compare that... I don't know, go back to it again. Star Wars? Like, Star Wars is aggressively scored, to be sure. Like, there is no shortage of music all over Star Wars. But, like...
I mean, Star Wars... When did Star Wars come out?
In the 80s, I believe. Or, no, 70s, right? 70s? So, like...
Well, I'm going to tell you. 1977, so 80s, essentially 80s.
Yeah. I knew it was 70s. I thought it was before
late
the
70s.
Yeah, because it was in the 80s zeitgeist because so many people had seen it by then. So, all right. But, like, Star Wars, like, aggressively scored. Like, it's constantly throwing music at you, right? But,
yeah,
John Williams, man, he just nails it, Like there's never a time when I'm like, oh man, I really wish that the score wasn't here. Like, I'm just like, oh no, this is beautiful or menacing or whatever it needs to be at any moment. And, like, even though it's very like, this is the emotion you're supposed to be feeling with the music, like, it works. It works, and I love it. Whereas in this movie, I was like, okay, it's the Lawrence of Arabia theme again, slightly changed, and, like, that's sort of interesting, but it's like it needed something else. My attention shouldn't be drawn to the score. It should complement the movie, not just be there and be like, hey, I'm a score, listen. So I don't know. I
honestly didn't notice it that much. There were a few scenes where I was like, oh, look, it's the Lawrence of Arabia score again.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. It was, for me, it was the weakest point of the movie, which is crazy because it's, like, super universally praised. So, what the fuck do I know, right?
Probably nothing. I mean, I do have a few friends who, like, only listen to movie scores.
That's interesting.
And it's just like, wow. Like, I mean, do you, man, but oof.
Hey.
That's rough.
Yeah, that's something, all right. But hey, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna tell somebody to live their life. If that's what makes you happy, go for it, man. You know,
do it.
Just watch your movie scores.
Watch your movie scores.
It.
Please don't watch your movie scores.
Sounds like.
Please listen to them.
Yeah, sounds like somebody's mom. Just go watch your movie scores. So I cannot talk about this movie without talking about Dune.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this movie came out 2 years before Dune, and
really, that's all.
That's all. 2 years. Well, Dune
crazy.
was written pretty early, right? So this movie came out 2 years before Dune. So I mean, maybe he was in the process of writing it, but from what I understand, Lawrence.
Oh wait, you mean the book came out?
The book Dune.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I thought you were talking about the movie, and I was like, wow, really?
No. The book
old?
Dune.
What?
The book
Yeah.
Dune.
Okay. Yeah.
So 2 years before Dune was written, and I mean, this is obviously an influence on Dune. Like, I mean, it is. I believe that like Frank Herbert even like has said like Lawrence of Arabia was one of the things that because I know you haven't read Dune, but you've seen the movies.
Yeah. I've seen the movie multiple times.
So I'm on the third book now. I've the third of 6 books.
Oh, you're in the danger zone.
I'm in the, well, I think I'm gonna finish it. I like it so much at this point that I don't think there's any way around it. I think I'm gonna have to finish it.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna have to because I need to read God Emperor. Like it's so good, and like if I read God Emperor, I'm gonna read Heretics and Chapter House. So like it's just it's gonna happen. I got no choice. Which by the way, if you ever get around to reading Dune for whatever reason, I would love to talk about it because I freaking love that.
It's one of I have Dune, the Wheel of Time series, and Salem's Lot on my computer, and I need to read Dune and Salem's Lot both.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Read Dune first because I won't probably be reading Salem's Lot, and I would love to talk about Dune. But
I mean, Dune is right up my alley. Super powerful guy taking control of the universe. I mean, God, it's like written for me.
Yeah. So like so you've seen. I don't know how far the first movie goes in terms of Dune, but I'll keep it.
I'm aware of the greater story of Dune in general, so I can talk about it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't want to really do Dune spoilers in here too much, but like I'm gonna talk just kind of general about like how Dune is, because I mean some of the big things of Dune are an individual that isn't from this desert area, kind of coming into that desert area and having to acclimate to it and be part of it, and this kind of like the same kind of like savior from the outside world type of themes.
Oh, I mean, it's almost one-to-one. I mean, the Freemen are obviously Arabs. I mean, like very clearly that's what they are.
You pronounce it Freeman?
Fremen.
Okay.
Fremen, sorry. Yeah, Fremen.
Wake up, Gordon Fremen, and smell the ashes.
Oh my God, we're gonna get another Half-Life game.
I know. Oh my God.
What universe is this?
I know, right? Oh God. All right. Well, we definitely have to talk. I mean, that's coming out soon. We're gonna have to talk about that when that actually comes out. But so like but the thing that I think is most striking is if he was in the middle of writing Dune before Lawrence of Arabia came out, I cannot believe that the blue eyes of the Fremen were not inspired by Peter O'Toole's portrayal of T. Lawrence. Like,
yeah, I mean, no,
has to be.
I feel like he watched that movie and then went and started writing Dune.
I can't believe that he didn't. Like, if that isn't the way that it happened, I am completely shocked because, like, it's just such an interesting kind of like convergence of things that are happening in my life. It's like I've been meaning to read Dune for so long. I've been meaning to watch this movie for so long. It's like, oh, okay, they have very, very similar themes. It's just super interesting. But like, I got another layer of interest out of it just by being able to compare it to Dune and just thinking about like, wow, there's a lot of parallels here. This is really, and like the whole concept of like a fighting force that nobody really thought to take advantage of. Yeah,
and then they use like hit and run tactics, and they come out of the desert like ghosts. Yes. And I mean it's one-to-one.
Yeah,
really.
And the concept of him like when he gets his like chic robes or whatever they are, or Sharif robes. Chic. That's Legend of Zelda, not Lords of Arabia.
Well, I mean,
Sharif
sheikhs
robes.
are a
Sharif
thing,
robes.
But Sharif, yes,
yeah, Sharif robes. Like it's like it kind of like it just reminds me of like the still suits in Dune, and like the whole concept of like, okay, that's the mark of being part of that community is also donning the garments of that community. Like it's just like. I really enjoyed those parallels while watching the movie, and having that other layer just kind of just added to my enjoyment. I'm surprised it's taken me this long to watch it.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those movies that it's like it's going to be amazing, And so it's just like, you don't really need to like, you almost don't need to watch it in a way.
That being said, though, I find that this movie is way more watchable. Obviously, it was a 4-hour movie, and I breezed through it. To something like Citizen Kane, which is, I would say, equally if not more influential on filmmaking itself. But fuck, man, Citizen Kane is a chore to watch.
Yes, this movie is right in that sweet spot. I mean, I feel like the 60s is right where movies start to become really watchable, honestly. Because it's like, they're out of like, they're out of the stage play stuff. Like, a Streetcar Named Desire has come out, I'm pretty sure, already at this point. Let me check that so I don't sound like an idiot.
It's another movie that I haven't watched, but I should.
Streetcar Named Desire, 1947. Oh, it's a play. Wait, shit. When's the movie? Oh, come on. Why is the 1951? Okay, yes. So this definitely came out after that. And so it's just like, you have actual acting, which, by the way, we need to talk about the acting in this movie because it's amazing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But, like, you have the acting, like, you're no longer a play. Like, so the 60s is where everything kind of accumulates into what we think of as modern film, to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is where movies start to seem more familiar to what we're currently used to versus, watching something that is very obviously old.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about the acting, because I mean, obviously, Peter O'Toole, I mean, this is his debut, if I recall correctly, right? Like, I mean, I think he was a stage actor before, and this was his first movie.
I mean, it wasn't his first movie, but it was his first big break.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, it has the whole introducing Peter O'Toole, so,
Yeah, because his first movie is Kidnapped, then Savage Innocence, then The Day They Robbed the Bank of England, then Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay, and this is, obviously his first big movie.
Yeah. It's just like the way he portrays the character is like so delicate. Like for someone who has as much impact and does the kind of like military campaigning in the desert, like that's a man's work. But he's like, a little like, effeminate a little bit and nervous and like he's a little bit he's delicate. Like it's amazing. Like and to see him pull that off, even like in the first scene where he like the way he walks even is like you can feel that nervous energy just flowing off of him.
No, it's a very reserved performance in a time when we're still not quite out of the, over the top like stage acting in movies like era.
Yeah.
Like that still has, and like, and there's still a little bit of that, but it's not like the, hey Johnny, we got some things going on over here. It's like that's kind of not there, We've started to move on from that.
And thank God we moved on from that.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's plenty of movies that are like that are good and that I enjoy, but there's definitely a feeling of datedness to it that doesn't exist in this movie. Although it is interesting you talk about his effeminate portrayal because, like, obviously his performance, from what I understand, because I again, this is another thing I looked up afterwards because I was like, am I imagining this? I'm like, I'm not imagining this, right? It's like, because he's portraying him as gay.
Yeah.
Which was, from what I understand, based on a book that was written about T.E. Lawrence that has since been kind of like, I guess not, I don't want to say debunked, but basically they're like, that was not really an accurate portrayal of him, like based on like the people that knew him. Like most people that knew him actually saw him almost kind of more like just asexual. He was just kind of like totally focused on his work and nothing else, which I imagine at the time probably tracked for a lot of people as like, oh, he's not that interested in women. What's going on with that guy? Whereas like, now we kind of know it as just kind of like, all right, he probably just wasn't interested in anything, like other than his, like,
or he was gay and he didn't want to, get like, oh God, who's the guy who did the Enigma machine?
Alan Turing, like chemically castrated.
Yeah, Alan Turing. He didn't want to get Alan Turing to like get chemically castrated.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely a possibility for that, but
so who knows?
But like, yeah, I mean, his portrayal, it's so because it's like he's very he manages to come across as very commanding, while at the same time not being over the top and not be like there's no real, like you said, there's no machismo to the character, but there is a lot of
crazy.
Yeah, but there is just like a lot of like he's got presence, and he just feels very much like it's like the only man for the job. It's like he's the one who knows what to do, and he comes across that way without seeming like boisterous.
Yeah, it's such a subtle acting job.
Yeah.
It's so impressive to see, like, and the close-ups when he's like, just like, he has like that, like, starting to get a little teary-eyed almost. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, the scene where the Turkish soldier is shooting at him after the train derailment, and he's just standing there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God. How do you even begin to get into that mindset to do that kind of acting?
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is like the old school, of acting. This is before like of like the method acting.
There was no method acting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so like it's because it's funny, you hear so much about that in the modern day of like, oh, like they really got into the character, but it's like, it's almost like the difference between like, it's like, yeah, well, I mean, how can you not get into a character if you literally just try to live their life for the entire duration of the movie? Yeah. Whereas like, I imagine that like, he just shows up and he just freaking turns it on, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
I think like, as much as method acting is, I mean, like the Daniel Day-Lewis's and stuff of, of the world and like how amazing they are. Like, I mean, there's a part of me that respects this more because it's like, you just show up on set. You're like, okay, cool. 1, 2, 3. I'm T. Lawrence now. Go. And it's like, holy shit, man.
I agree 100%. If someone paid me $1 million, I'd be willing to, like, pretend to be fucking who cares? Tell me. I'll act like them for a year.
Yeah.
Like, I got no problem with that. I can do that. I feel like I could method act. I'm sure I can't, and I'm sure that I'm just talking out my ass.
Yeah.
But I feel like I could method act. I can't act.
Yeah. When I post this on Reddit, I think that'll be the title of the thread of Steven says that he can method act.
Oh, great. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, just keep those angry comments coming. It feeds me.
Oh, yes. I love the feedback, especially when it's angry.
Yeah. Well, you want that passion.
You got to have that passion. There's nothing that incites an internet flame war like being wrong. Oh, man. So,
go ahead. Speaking of the other actors, I mean, we've already talked about Alex Guinness' portrayal as Prince Faisal.
Yes.
I mean, we're good there.
Yes.
Omar Sharif.
Yes.
His character has the biggest arc, I feel, in the whole film.
Oh, yeah. Like, if Lawrence is just kind of like the person that moves the story along, like, Sharif Ali, Omar Sharif, wait a second. Is it actually?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Omar Sharif as Sharif Ali. Okay. They really weren't very creative at all with that name.
Yeah, well, it's funny too because it's like because he was a made up character from what I understand.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Which I think gave them license. Like, apparently he was a composite character. So like from what I understand, there's some people that argue he did actually exist, but I think the prevailing theory is that he's a composite of multiple people. And I think that was great because it gave them a lot of license to take him in whatever direction they wanted. And oh man, yeah, I mean, like, kind of having him evolve over time of being this, very like angry, like savage dude, that just, kills in cold blood to just, kind of like becoming this almost like diplomatic type of character.
Yeah, like an actual leader.
Yeah, and it's like, it's really good, Like, and Omar Sharif, I mean, he does a fantastic job in this movie.
Yeah, and the way his character's, like, even his character's opinion of T. Lawrence,
yeah,
like, is so, like, it's so nuanced. Like, he hates him at first, and then he kind of comes to respect him, and then he falls back into kind of thinking, like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and by the end, it's just like, he moves beyond him in a really satisfying way.
Yeah.
Like, he really,
and I really
so good.
I feel like that's that happens for a lot of people in this movie. It's kind of interesting of like, because in a lot of movies you have a main character who has some growth. And that's kind of the that's the thread of the movie. That's what pushes the movie forward. And yet in this movie, it seems like you have a character who stays relatively consistent throughout the film and then moves everything around him.
Yes.
Which, because I mean, like, the reporter, his fellow soldiers, like back in Cairo, everybody's opinion of him evolves and changes over time as he shifts the literal events of the movie. And I can't I can't think of very many movies that have that type of an arc to them.
Yeah, because it's generally a boring character.
Yes, and he manages to make it not boring.
Yeah, because his nuance is just there's always that doubt in that character, and then when he gets tortured by the Turkish general,
yes,
that doubt finally manifests. Also, I'm just reading the wiki here, and I just want to note. Apparently, the guy who played the Turkish general paid more than O'Toole and Sheriff combined, and he got a Porsche.
Really?
That man knew how to fucking argue for salary.
Yeah, well, he knew.
He was only in that movie for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Is he a famous actor?
Apparently, Peter O'Toole once said that he learned more about screen acting from Ferrer, the guy who played Turkish Bey, the Turkish general guy, than any acting class. So apparently he's like an amazing actor.
Interesting. Because I can't think of what else I've seen him in, but I mean,
Yeah, neither can I.
He also was in makeup, probably, so.
Yes, he was. He's Puerto Rican, not Turkish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and everyone is just so... Even the kids, like, usually I find those kind of characters really annoying.
Oh, they were great. They did an excellent job.
And they're like, and then when he dies and he's like getting like killed in the quicksand. Oh, God, that scene. Just like, because you think he's going to save him.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, get him. Yeah, and then he dies.
Yeah. And like, that kind of has that, that theme of just the desert as a character, just kind of swallowing all these people whole.
Yeah.
And like it's in the same way of like the kind of themes with like him going back for that guy and then inevitably having to kill him, of like, the desert chooses who lives and survive, like who survives and who dies, Yeah.
I love the little throwaway line. I mean, it's not really a throwaway line, but it's the older Arab guy that's been with them the whole time is just like, he casually just goes like, "Oh, it was written." Yes. And it's just like, "Oh, yeah. It was written, actually." Even T. Lawrence can't really fight fate.
Yes, and I think that's such an important moment in the film, because he realizes, he's like, "Oh shit, you know what? Like, maybe I'm not as in control as I think I am."
Yeah, and that's the whole movie, is him realizing that, like, I'm not Arab. Like, I'm a British guy.
Yes.
Like, ultimately.
Yes, I'm always going to be the insurgent. I'm never going to be able to, like, I can't be the leader of these people, like, I can't control this world. Like, they need to lead themselves, and they need to have their own, like, they need to have their own autonomy. It's like, you're just trading one British general for another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's no good.
God.
But it's also interesting, too, like, the whole concept of, like, the desert just kind of being this, like, I mean, well, it is a force of nature, but, like, this, kind of, like... This force that just, basically has its own agenda, and just, kind of, like, takes who it takes and lets survive who it lets survive. Is, I mean, that's, again... I wonder where Frank Herbert got that from, right? I mean, like, I could not help but, like, in that exact scene, like the "it is written" type of thing, like, I couldn't help but think of Dune when I thought about that, and the whole concept of just like how the desert is just kind of like its own force with its own feelings, its own agenda. Also the guy that played Auda. Yeah, the other tribemen that like they teamed up with, basically, to take that town. Like, he was fantastic. Like, his like, I'll say stage presence, like, was just like, oh my God, he was fantastic. Who was he played by? He was
Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, you just can't gush enough about almost literally every aspect of this film. It's just like the acting, the cinematography, the sets, the extras, the score we've talked about is a little much.
Our unpopular
opinion. I mean, still, the score is beautiful. Like, 95% of the score is perfect.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it is very epic the first, like, couple times you hear it, and, like, I didn't always have a problem with it. It's just, I found it intrusive at points, and I found it very, like, musically, I found it to be a very strange choice, like, where they were just kind of, like, meandering, for what I couldn't really understand as any particular reason. But, that's neither here, that's maybe more personal taste than anything, because, obviously, this film did very well from a score perspective. I Is that the only Academy Award that this won was for score?
Oh, really?
Well, because I know that I know that Peter O'Toole.
Best Picture it won. Best Director won.
Okay.
Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Film Editing, Best Sound.
Yeah, but you know who didn't win? Friggin' Peter O'Toole.
Nope. Peter O'Toole didn't win, Omar Sharif didn't win, and the screenwriters didn't get anything.
Did he ever win an Academy Award? I feel like he didn't.
Peter O'Toole?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's... No, okay. Academy Award nominations. No, he never won.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that... Is that's... I mean, you know... I have a very low opinion of the Academy in general. You know.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yes. Fuck the Academy.
Yeah, but like, man, what a robbery to have never like given him an Academy. I mean, like he earned it for that movie like 20 times over.
Oh man, I'm just looking at his list. In 1972, he got nominated for The Ruling Class, and the winner of that was Marlon Brando, who declined to take his award.
God.
So he lost to someone who didn't even want it.
Fuck.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
that
man.
hurts. That hurts.
That is rough.
All the other ones make sense though. It's like he lost to Kill a Mockingbird, he lost to My Fair Lady, he lost to True Grit, he lost to Raging Bull, and he lost to Gandhi. Just like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, sure.
It's like
I see why he lost.
Okay, I mean Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. I mean that is an
Exactly.
incredible performance, so I can't
Yeah.
Although that being said, that same year John Hurt did not win for The Elephant Man. That's a that's a crime. That's a crime.
I mean, Elephant Man's Kubrick, right?
No. Elephant
Lynch.
Man is what's it?
I thought it was-
Did Twin Peaks?
Yeah, Lynch. Yeah.
Lynch. Yeah, not Kubrick. Lynch. Yeah.
Yeah, Lynch. Yeah, I mean, they're never going to give Lynch an Academy Award, right? I mean,
Yeah, because you know it's Lynch. But my God,
Yeah, it's
I mean
Lynch.
The Elephant Man. Like that's such a not to get off into such a different movie, but
we've already completely gone off topic.
but oh my God, he like that movie is so reserved for him, you know, like it's so like, I mean, compared to his other stuff, but like he just nails it. He just like that movie to me proves how good of a director Lynch is, because you could argue, like, having seen Lynch's movies, that like all he can do is weird surreal stuff, and like is it actually good, or is it just surreal and people say they like it? But like then you watch The Elephant Man, you're just like, no, fuck you. Lynch can do traditional filmmaking perfectly fine. He just doesn't want to.
Yeah, it's just boring for him.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Except for The Elephant Man, which is just oh my God. That movie is like, to just say short words about The Elephant Man, like that movie is so compelling. Like you feel so bad for John Merrick throughout that movie. Like the poor guy.
Yeah, I've actually never seen Elephant Man.
Oh, you've never seen? Oh, dude.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta watch it apparently.
You have to watch it.
I mean, I really don't want to watch it because I'm sure it's going to be crushingly sad. But
Well, yeah. I mean, do you know the story of The Elephant Man?
I mean, very bad, sad tale. No, not really.
Yeah,
though.
it's not happy. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to get crushed.
But that being said, I think it was Mel Brooks that produced that movie.
I believe you're right.
Which is hilarious, right? You know, it's like, I mean, Mel Brooks of all people, you know, Blazing Saddles and like History of the World Part 1, all that stuff. It's
Young
like
Frankenstein, yeah, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, and then The Elephant Man, you know? It's kind of like
Yeah.
Miyazaki with or like, was it Miyazaki or was it just Studio Ghibli? But it's like, you know, like Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service and fucking Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh God! Don't remind me about that movie. Oh,
Jeez.
Speaking of, I'm sorry, this is another non sequitur, but have you ever seen Ghost Story?
No, it's
Just
on our
speaking
list.
of
Do you want to do that one next?
No, I do not want to do that one. I never ever want to watch that movie again.
Okay.
I cried literally the whole time
Okay.
watching that movie. Like that movie was the saddest thing I've ever seen. I cannot watch that again.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'll talk about it with you, but I'm not going to watch it.
Oh, that's
again.
fine. I can. I mean, it's on our list to watch, so we can watch it.
Yeah. God. Oh my God. That movie is so fucking. It's not even really that. Like, it's not like The Elephant Man, where I'm sure it's like actually really sad. Like the Ghost Story is kind of hopeful, actually, in a weird way. It just made me cry the whole time. I don't want to do that again.
You know, it's funny you say that because, like, Grave of the Fireflies, right? Like, that's the one that everybody says is, like, the crushing, horrible, like, you're going to cry the whole time movie. Mm-hmm. I have a very different opinion of that particular movie, is in the sense that, like, I found that movie very frustrating. That was the thing that I took away from it.
Oh, well, yeah, because it's like, just, like, go to an adult already.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're in trouble, and like I get that, like, you know, the adults are shitty in the world, but like isn't that better than like suffering and dying? I mean, I guess that
yeah, the answer to that is no, apparently.
The answer to that is no, apparently. Because like everybody finds out it's like, oh, that movie's so sad. I'm like, that movie is so like, dude, kid, take care of your fucking sibling. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You fuck. What are you doing?
Yeah, you are the big brother, so you it would make sense that you would have that perspective.
Yeah, I'm like, you are the problem. So yeah, I don't find that movie sad. I find that movie very frustrating. And actually, it's interesting because from what I understand, so that movie is based on a true story. The guy who wrote it, like, he's basically saying that's essentially what happened.
Oh God.
Oh, I know, it's fucking. I mean, that makes it even more. That makes it. It's a very.
Yeah, that's horrible.
It's a depressing movie. You know, like I would say it while being frustrating, is definitely a depressing as shit movie. It's not sad to me, but it is very depressing. But like basically, like his whole thing is he made that movie as kind of like an apology, essentially. To like, or not made the movie, but like he wrote the story because he didn't make the movie, but he wrote the story. He wrote the story like essentially as like I have to get this on paper to like just, you know, like I'm sorry for like letting this happen.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's,
you know,
terrifying.
Yeah. Grave of the Fireflies. Spoilers. It's fucking sad as shit.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think you'll find Ghost Story pretty sad.
Okay. Yeah. Will I find it The Fountain sad?
Ooh.
Because that movie, I know we already talked about that a few episodes ago, but like The Fountain, man, that movie hurts me. That movie hurts
You know, actually, it's very, very similar to The Fountain.
Oh, fuck, man. That
like, the kind of hurt that you get from The Fountain, you're going to get from Ghost Story.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to watch that shit again.
You know, it's so funny to me that The Fountain was not better received, like, by critics, because it's like...
Yeah, critics are stupid.
They are stupid, man. Like, I can't believe that movie did not get the love that it deserved. Because, I mean, you know, on the list of friggin', you know, what's his face's movies? Because that's what's his name? The guy that does The Wrestler, and he did
Terrence Malick.
The other guy, the guy that you always confuse with Terrence Malick.
Terrence Malick. No, I was right. Terrence Malick. Oh no, wait, that's Tree of Life. Fuck.
You always confuse The Fountain and Tree of Life.
Yeah, I always do. You even said it, and I still did it. Darren Aronofsky.
Like, I mean, you know, it was because like a lot of his movies are like they're just like, you know, hit you in the face with a baseball bat. Like,
so bad. Like they're all so crushing.
Yeah, like, but his movies are usually like they're not just like they're not like sad like in a bittersweet way. They're sad like in a fucking mean way.
Yes.
And
they are he makes mean films.
He makes mean films, and The Fountain isn't mean. You know, The Fountain is very bittersweet because, you know, it's like the whole accepting death and all that. But like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, like you can't do that to me. Like it's brutal. But God, yeah, we could probably do a whole episode on. We could do a whole episode on movies that make me sad. Although that being said, I feel like there are two kinds of like sad movies. Because there's something like The Fountain, and then there's something like AI, which I don't know if you ever watched.
That's bittersweet.
But AI is, I feel like The Fountain is a more genuine movie than something like AI, which feels very manipulative. Like,
I mean, it is manipulative.
It is manipulative. Like I feel like at the end of the
Spielberg movie, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Spielberg. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's what he does.
That is what he does. It's like, oh, I mean, yeah, fucking like, what is it? I cried like a
E.T.
What E.T.? Yeah, I was thinking Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Spielberg is one of the quintessential just like I'm gonna manipulate your emotions now.
Yeah, it's like hey, you know all your emotions? I have them tied to little strings, and I'm gonna make them dance.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, dance puppets, dance.
Because like at the fucking end of Saving Private Ryan, you know, like the whole like the tell me I'm a good man, you know, thing. Have you seen Saving Private Ryan?
Or like the old face morph.
Yeah.
they do at the end.
Yeah, and then
just
he's
like,
just like,
okay, sure, dude.
pleading with like, his like, with his family, like, tell me I'm a good man. I'm like, fuck you, Steven Spielberg. This is bullshit. You know what this is gonna do to me, you asshole.
He does. That's why he did it.
Yeah, and like the same thing with AI. It's like I found AI. I didn't like the movie. Like it wasn't really that good. I was watching it. I'm like, this is kind of like a dumb movie for like 90% of it. And like then not that Saving Private Ryan is a good movie. AI is I don't really like. I don't think it's a very good movie. But at the end of it, I cried like a baby because he's just like, oh hey, here's your sad emotion. Let me just pluck that a little bit. I'm like, you fucker.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg.
No, I hate that. I hate filmmakers who do that.
Yes, and I feel like
totally
The
honest.
Fountain is not that way. I feel like The Fountain is a very genuine, like, at the end of it, I'm like, yep, I feel like I logically came to this emotion and nobody forced me into it.
The Fountain is sad because it's so beautiful.
Yes, I agree
Which
with
is
that.
different than being sad because of being sad.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm sorry that audiences can't follow, 3 different storylines enough to be sad at the end of it.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, ugh.
Oh, man. So do we have anything else to say about Lawrence of Arabia?
I mean, I feel like it's such an amazing movie that I can really I can gush about it, but I don't really have anything like interesting to say almost.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we've been talking for 2 hours.
Yes.
About it.
I think that we've said quite a bit about it. I think that like what I'll say about it is for a movie that is a product of its time, it's so much not a product of its time that it's amazing. Like it has anachronisms in the sense of like, like I was talking about with the transitions and the score. It's a very much an in-between movie in terms of like, filmmaking is really just starting to become modern at this point. And like the things like the things like the match
This movie
blowing
is
out.
leading that charge.
Yeah, and like the things like the match blowing out, cutting directly to the sunset, and like the very nuanced performance of Peter O'Toole, and like the amazing performances of everybody else in this movie. Like this is almost one. I like I said, I don't know enough about film history to say this definitively, but at least from my perspective, this feels to me like one of the proto-modern movies. One of the movies that takes us into what modern cinema ends up becoming. If not the first. It's very close to the first.
Oh, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm looking at French New Wave films and trying to figure out which of the ones I know came before Lawrence of Arabia, and so far none of them actually.
Yeah, well.
So yeah,
And the French New Wave, I know that those movies were, and maybe proto is the wrong word. Maybe this is one of the movies where because it is in the mainstream. Because those French movies weren't really, from what I understand, they weren't really in the mainstream. They were more movies that filmmakers had seen, but maybe not necessarily things that your average Hollywood audience had seen.
No, yeah, almost guaranteed that they've seen none of those movies.
So
yeah.
I would not be surprised if Lawrence of Arabia was the first time Hollywood audiences had seen those type of filmmaking techniques and this kind of like approach to movies before. That Lawrence of Arabia was kind of where this all really started for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. I think if this is not one of the first like truly modern films, it's one of the first.
Yes, and for anybody that like balks at the 4-hour runtime to this movie, and I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, there's no way you are, but just
a lot of people balk. Yeah.
But if you were to balk at that, like you probably watch 4 or 5 hours of TV a night anyway. So just do it in breaks, man. Do it 1 hour at a time. But like I did. But like
and I will say you can watch part 1 and part 2 as 2 movies.
Oh yeah, you could separate.
You can watch the first half, stop at the intermission, come back in a week, and watch part 2, and you're not really going to lose anything.
Yeah,
they're very much 2 separate parts of a whole.
Yes, and this movie it flies by for being as long as it is. It's amazing how well paced it is, and just
I think the last 30 minutes of part 2 are a little slow for me. Because it's at that point it's just the politicking happening.
Yeah, which is usually
interesting.
Usually I really like the politics, but somehow that's the least interesting part of this movie. He does such a good job
you lose you lose all those wonderful desert scapes and all like
and he's so good out in the field. Like, that's where he's in his element. And, maybe that's kind of part of it. Lawrence is in his element out in the desert. He's not in his element in the politics.
Yeah, it's very thematic, actually. You're right.
Yeah. So I really enjoy it. So, I mean, like, Jason and Steven recommend a beloved classic.
Yes.
Shocker.
Yeah. Who'd have thought? One of the greatest films of all time is worth watching.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah, I know.
So anyway,
Crazy.
that's our hot take.
Yep.
Do we want to pick a new movie?
Yeah, sure. Let's pick one.
All right.
I feel like we could watch my favorite French New Wave film, Le Samouraï.
Le Samouraï?
Le Samouraï.
All right. So next time, Le Samouraï.